The World Isn't Flat Yet, a presentation by Perry Sanderson. So, this is a presentation sort of talking about the book called The World is Flat that was written by Thomas L. Friedman. He was, or is, an American commentator, an author, and a 3-time Pulitzer Prize winner. He's a New York Times columnist, and he frequently writes about foreign affairs, globalization, global trade, the Middle East, and environmental issues. So the idea in his book is that the world is flat, and that's not in terms of like geographically, but it talks about the market playing fields as being like an even like surface, and it's how people all over the world now are starting to have the same sort of opportunities because more countries can compete in the market. His book was very well received by like a lot of economists like around the world, and it was a global sensation. So in his book, he talks about 3 different globalizations. Globalization 1.0, which has to do with countries. That stage was from 1492 until the 1800. Then his second one was from 1800 to 2000, and that's Globalization 2.0, which is sort of characterized by multinational corporations springing up like all over, like mainly like in Europe and in the United States, like doing business like across borders. And then Globalization 3.0, which was from 2000 to the present day, it's big powers rising up outside of the U.S. and Europe. So it's like similar to Globalization 2.0, but different in the fact that it's not mainly happening inside the United States or in like European countries. It's happening in places that had been considered developing for a long time. So here's what I think. I think that the world is almost flat. I think that definitely a lot of progress has been made, and we've come a long way in terms of sort of starting to level that playing field a little bit and making it more easy for different countries and different groups to participate in many markets. Still, though, we have a lot of nations worldwide that just don't have the resources to compete yet, that are like being oppressed either by forces within the country or being held down by other countries around the world. And the United States, China, India, and the European Union still dominate in a lot of different markets and are like the heads of many conversations, and sort of like to think, I think in a lot of cases, that like they are the expert on things like this and don't like to take in many other perspectives. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that many different nations are still developing today, so they have their issues inside their countries, like I said. Like a lot of countries are dealing with corrupt government and like oppressive laws and regulations that make it hard to sort of get on top. And even the countries that are able to enter into global marketplaces easier, a lot of those countries are forced into specific niche markets that they can't break out of. So that means that they're stuck doing like one specific thing, like where maybe like they lead in that market, but they can't even begin to enter like many other markets because they just don't have like the power or like the ability to put time and resources into like developing those areas of their market. And then the cost of producing and exporting certain goods can be too high for some countries, so they have to focus on other things that don't cost them as much. Here's why that's an issue. A lot of these problems that are being faced in these developing nations have direct ties to colonialism, which means that like the countries like England and like the United States that have been like sort of imperial presence in a lot of developing nations, like they are the ones ruling these markets, so like they're still on top, like due to like the decades of like hate and oppression that they have like forced upon these like developing nations. Colonizing and imperialist countries, that because they're leading, like it sort of like keeps reinforcing this issue, like the same like disparities that we see, which makes it hard for these countries to come up and get more power. So this is the direct line of correlation between the countries who conquered doing well and the nations they conquered doing poorly. Like again, like as like a generalization, with the United States and the United Kingdom, China, etc., being the ones who are sort of dominating, and also very large imperialistic countries and big forces like that have in the past held different countries down. So can the world ever be flat? I do believe that it can be flattened. I think that as more nations are allowed to develop, the playing field will become more fairly balanced. I think there will always be cultural impacts, so like the culture and like different like practices or like religions, etc. Like in certain areas may sort of prohibit certain countries from gaining the sort of power that they might like need or want like in order to like dominate like a market. But like once their country becomes powerful enough to like make those decisions like themselves, then I don't feel like it's an issue. So like if like say you're like a developing nation and one of your main religion has a belief that on certain days people just don't work. And so if your nation is powerful enough to say, okay, like, that's fine, we'll trade off some market power for, like, our religious practices, then that's fine, as long as they're having the choice and the ability to make those kinds of decisions, and I don't feel like it's an issue. Does this mean that the world is bad now? I don't think so. I think that there is a lot of work left to be done in this area, but past successes should not be forgotten, and we have come an insanely long way from where we began. Things are definitely getting better. More countries are entering into like global markets, and more countries are getting more development, and they're becoming more powerful, and they're able to sort of control little aspects of like the market sectors, which is good. How to get there. To flatten our playing field, we need to lift each other up. So, less imperialism, for sure. Foster young minds, enable exploration and trying new things. So allowing countries to sort of break the mold of like things that we necessarily like expect from them. You know, like a lot of the times people have sort of ideas of like what a certain country can and can't produce, and if we shake those ideas, then those countries will be able to enter new markets and will be able to try new things and find new niches that they would maybe like to explore. And that would help growth, and it would, if we shake some of our biases, then it could allow these developing countries to actually be able to get better in the areas that they're trying to improve in. And my conclusion, I think that Friedman makes good points in his book, but he's not necessarily 100% accurate in my opinion. Again, I'm not an expert, but it's just my take. I think that we're definitely in a better place than we were before. I feel like that's not negotiable. We've been progressing a long time. The world is not flat yet due to many factors that I stated, and we can achieve a level playing field with work from all of us and sort of like a big global effort, because I feel like things can only get better when we have more opportunity coming from different countries. We'll be exposed to more things and have new solutions for problems and new inventions and new creations that we can all enjoy. And here are my citations, and this concludes my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.